pretty well, only to rewatch it and see 3 better options that I could have taken that would have changed the situation entirely. Apex is fast, and it takes a lot of concentration to just operate within the game, let alone pull key takeaways while in the heat of a game. And guys, no matter what you're on, PC or console, there are a ton of ways to go about doing this. If you're on a console, both PlayStation and Xbox have built-in recording capabilities. And if you're on PC, I'd recommend using Shadowplay if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, or OBS if you don't. Both are great options. I won't spend a ton of time here walking you guys through how to use these features, but there's a ton of videos online that can walk you through recording a video regardless of your platform. So having recordings of your games, or at least the decisions that led up to you losing or even winning, is a great thing to have. But what should you be doing with them? Obviously, you should be watching them, but what are you watching them for? This is where the real skill gap exists between high-level pro players and your average RP grinder in Platinum or Diamond. Being not only critical of your gameplay, but also having a trained eye to notice your weaknesses and bad decisions when rewatching these situations is what will elevate you as a player. You should be watching these clips with your improvement in mind, trying your absolute best to spot any sort of shortcomings in your game. The easy stuff to notice is missing shots, having clunky movement, and these things are a lot easier to fix. If you notice mechanical problems in your game, make sure you're warmed up before you head into your matches and take some extra time to focus on your aim or whatever mechanics you don't feel are up to par. And guys, if you haven't watched your own gameplay before, trust me, you will notice this stuff a lot more when reviewing your own VOD because you aren't used to watching yourself. We all spend a lot of time watching other people play, whether it's Imperial Hal or another one of your favorite streamers. And you know when watching these players that they are pretty insane at the game because it shows in their recording. Now, when we detach ourselves from our own gameplay enough to watch ourselves this way, it's inevitable that you're going to notice that we aren't actually as good as these players. You'll start to see yourself in an honest light, without all the noise and bias in the game that keeps you from properly breaking down your decisions and mechanics. But the biggest thing is you don't want to look at this as negative. If anything, it's super exciting because as you start to notice your weaknesses, you can make clear, concise plans to improve on them. So let's go through a few examples of common mistakes that players will notice from doing VOD reviews of their own games. As I said, mechanics are the obvious. I won't spend a ton of time here because most players know they should be improving their aim and movement, and it's pretty obvious to mess things like this up. On to more decision-making focused issues, a lot of players will notice that they misplay timings with their squad. It is so common for players to challenge an angle and take a fight, expecting their team to be ready to help, but their team is healing or preoccupied with something else. I cannot tell you guys how many times I'm playing Phil squads and I'm expecting my squad mate to team shot the guy I'm looking to kill, only for him to not shoot a single bullet. This can be frustrating, and sometimes you can just have a bad teammate. But a lot of the time, it's actually because they were healing, getting pushed themselves, or they just didn't have an angle to help. It's important to use your UI at all times to monitor teammate locations, health, and loot, because if you don't, it can really come back to bite you. There are plenty of situations that we all come across where if we had properly taken in the information the game provided us, we would have come out on top. And this goes for other indicators too, like ring location, friendly pings, and even audio and visual cues from nearby enemies. This game gives you so much info to help you make choices, and most of us don't even use half of it. Building habits to use these types of info can be really tough in-game, but once you see this information on the playback, you realize how valuable it could have been and how much you totally missed it in the moment. These bad habits extend way beyond just how you gather and use your info, because some of us have bad habits regarding playing the game, even if we're taking in all the right information. Here's a few examples. Do you have the tendency to over-push and get caught? Do you get impatient in fights and find yourself getting down first in every fight? Or maybe you get so distracted by getting that perfect third party that you lose sight of ring location and you're playing the entire game on the back foot with the zone on your tail. These habits and many more will be much easier to spot when you're rewatching your games with a critical eye. Now, guys, don't feel the need to notice everything that you need to improve at once. As you're rewatching your top 5 situation that you didn't come out on top, or that fight off drop that you just didn't manage to win, pick a couple of things to focus on improving. You can't change your entire way of playing the game overnight, but what you can do is find a few key takeaways from these reviews and put a focus on improving them. For example, if you're getting caught out a lot and dying, try focusing on staying in close range to your team at all times throughout your next game. Or if you keep getting killed by zone, or you're running from it all game, focus on trying to get into a good circle position early on, and cut out some of your movement to the fight time. There are an infinite number of things that we can find to improve about anything in our game, and each one of us is going to be good at some things and bad at others. So, to start, just pick 1 or 2 bad parts of your game that you want to work on, and constantly be thinking about that part of your game as you play your next match. Doing this practice in normals is not a bad idea, because it will take away the added stress of losing RP and let you focus more on your improvement. But remember guys, don't let your diligence slip when you get back into those ranked lobbies with your RP on the line. And I want to remind you guys, do not beat yourself up, and be patient with your improvement. As long as you're taking this method seriously and putting a focus on improving, I promise you, you will improve. It's only a matter of time. Let me know in the comments below what part of your Apex gameplay that this method helps you identify to improve. Seriously guys, if you take even just 10 minutes per play session to look back at one of your games and check out a couple of weaknesses to focus on, you'll be improving faster than most players ever do on the server. This is a method that pros like Imperial Hal have used to become the literal best players in the world, so do not sleep on the review. Anyway guys, as always, it's been valued. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. How's it going guys? My name is Valued, and today we have a very exciting topic for you guys, and that is controller movement. This is one of the most important things to learn as a controller player, so grab your pen and get ready to take some notes because we're hopping right into it. Alright guys, I know you want to wall jump straight into the crazy movement techs and start learning them, but before we can do that, we have to go over some settings that will help with all the techniques we're about to touch on. Controllers with paddles like Scuffs can help a lot with movement. However, you can still do all the flashy movement with just a standard controller. First, let's talk about layouts. For normal controllers, you're going to want to look at the button layout button puncher. This allows for easier slide and crouching due to the crouch being on your right analog stick. And for paddle controllers, default or customizable is fine, but putting the jump and crouch button on one of the back paddles is the most optimal. Putting your crouch setting on hold instead of toggle is also going to be beneficial for you. Now, keep in mind this will take getting used to if you've used toggle for a while, but in the long run, it's going to be way more consistent. Another important thing to remember is that you don't need your sensitivity to be at 7.6 to be a fast movement player like your favorite streamers. Because you need to keep in mind you have to be able to kill people as well, so we wouldn't recommend raising your sensitivity purely for movement. And if you're not sure about what sensitivity you should run, be sure to check out our controller settings guide. It may help you understand what settings do what and why you may want to change certain settings. Anyway, the last setting we're going to look at in this video is the menu cursor speed. Now, this isn't a direct movement setting, however, it allows for quicker deathbox looting, and you're going to see why that's important later on. And keep in mind guys, all of the following movement mechanics can be done on 3 or 4 non-ADS sense relatively easily, so sensitivity really should not be a factor for you. Now that we've talked about a few of the settings, let's get right into the movement tech. With so many cool movement techs to talk about, we want to start with the fundamentals of quicker movement with a technique you've seen in game hundreds of times, and that is the slide jump. Whether you want to speed up your travel around the map or quickly get a peek on someone, this is the most basic way of doing so. You do this by sprinting and then pressing and holding the crouch button, which will perform a slide. After sliding for a second or so, perform a jump and soar through the air for a short time with a speed boost. So on your controller, you're going to be pushing your left analog stick in and forward to activate the sprint. After a second, press in the right analog stick in and you're going to start to slide. Let the slide continue for about a second or so and press A to jump out of the slide. When you land, continue sprinting and there you have it. This technique is repeatable and even allows for no audio movement for a short time in the air. On top of that, it's useful to do when you need to heal. Slide jumping and the top of the head will allow you to keep a little bit of movement speed during the start of whatever heal you're going to use. Now, if you're rushing the movement, the game can punish you with a dead slide. You're going to notice this by not getting much of a boost after you jump.